Tony Bishop. Thanks for taking the time to speak to Finextra. During your time at Wachovia, you were involved in driving forward an infrastructure project there that was quite cutting edge and went on to win a number of awards. Can you briefly give us some background to that project? What were the business drivers in place at the time, and then talk us through the steps you went through?
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity. We're very proud of what we accomplished. At the time, our investment bank that we were supporting was driven with the fact that they needed to build a best-in-class execution platform in terms of being able to compete with the bulge bracket firms. And also the overall corporate bank was driving a very significant shareholder key driver of return on equity. So you had this culmination of performance on one side with the most efficient operating environment on the other side as the drivers that force us to say, how are we going to do things different to be able to accommodate both?
Okay, and in terms of deciding the vendors that you were going to work with, what were the specs that you put out there when you were trying to find partners to work with?
Yeah, we actually took a very unique approach in that we did leverage a lot of emerging technology and along with some of the larger key technology firms. Our biggest thing was what we called fit for purpose, which was how did you find the best functionality that gave me automation, plug and play, and the ability to scale the environment and manage the environment in a much different way possible. So the criteria was, did it fit our functional requirements? Were they a firm that had good engineering? And did they understand where we were trying to go, and would they partner with us?
Okay, a lot of the work that went in place and was seen as quite cutting edge was about mapping the application interdependencies and also the visualization techniques you put in place for looking at that and other things like power consumption, bottlenecks and so on. Can you talk us through what you ended up with in the infrastructure?
Yeah, actually it was probably the most powerful concept of driving change on an incremental, pervasive basis. We did both a top-down understanding in an ITIL-like manner, but around a day in the life of the business and where they needed it to be, where it wasn't, and the gaps. And then we bottom up using tools like a Tideway systems and others. We were able to take and drive an understanding of what was the actual infrastructure, how was it connected, how was it dependent, how was it being used, and then we married that with the actual user experience tooling with a tool called Optier, which allowed us to see the actual end-to-end user transactions as they actually occurred. So as a result, we had the ability to be able to bring together top-down, bottom-up, factual, objective environment of what is the experience, what is it that we have, so that we could then actually start to transform it.
Okay, that's great. And once the infrastructure was up in place, and I believe it's been live for a number of months now, what kind of business benefits are you being able to deliver to the investment bank in giving them that best execution platform that's kind of top tier in terms of efficiency?
Yeah, there are a number of public record facts that have been stated out there with the various awards that the company submitted that recognized it. So if I draw upon those, I think that one was quoted that there was over $100 million in efficiency savings on an annual run rate basis, and there was also associated about $100 million net new revenue by being able to make better decisions and execute things faster that they couldn't do before, which gave the business a competitive advantage over their competitors.
I guess in terms of soft benefits, being able to have a more efficient data center operation also ticks some CSR boxes in terms of the green strategy for the company.
Yeah, I think you would see that Wachovia is a very big driver as an entity within the whole LEED certification and green type environment. There was a big push on being able to reduce carbon emissions, reduce the power actually used to be able to conduct business, reduce waste in terms of space, people, energy, etc. What we were as a user of the data center was we were a transformer because we helped the data center think about how they could use things more effectively while delivering better service value. So as a result, we became very good partners with the data center coming from a line of business group where we were able to automate the management and provisioning of all the different infrastructures and the associated life cycles from the network to the server and storage, the fabric environments, up into the application operating environments and so on. So it was a great partnership and a great marriage.
Okay. Having moved on from Wachovia after the end of the project and you kind of building on your knowledge of this project and sharing that with others, what would you say are the major learnings that you kind of had throughout the process, perhaps for other institutions who are looking to go down a similar path?
Yeah, I would say that alignment incremental building blocks and strategic uses of technology are probably your three lessons. Alignment-wise, you need to be able to understand where in the day in the life of the business IT is not delivering, or where could they deliver better, and start to match that with different business events so that they could start to say, there's where we'll drive our impact on infrastructure. What you'll usually find was that infrastructure, the most important parts of the business usually are the largest consumers of IT infrastructure. So if you can get that equation right, you have a very good chance of driving a much more efficient data center. Second thing is in the ability to understand what you actually have. Using tools like a Tideway systems that can actually instrument the actual dependencies out in the infrastructure. Using tools like data evidence software that tells you usage, tools like Optier that tells you user transaction. It transforms the dialogue into being much more transparent of what IT is doing and what the business is using, and also how you can start to transform. And when you can make that transparent and objective, that allows you to drive change much faster. The third thing is the productization of IT allows you to accelerate. If you think of IT as a collection of capabilities that functionally solve different problems that can be applied to different business processes, is where organizations can drive radical impact quickly.
The Wachovia project was quite cutting edge in its use of newer technology in the data center. Are you seeing the same kind of drivers more broadly in the financial industry?
Absolutely. I mean, that energy efficiency push is a critical one. So there are many ways of sort of looking at the energy consumption rate of data centers. But one way of thinking about it is that for every kind of $1 of compute power, there's another 50 cents spent on the electricity side of the house, and so that's a fairly significant chunk. What that amounts to today is 150 billion kilowatt hours. That's a figure that has tripled over the last 5 years. That's due to triple again over the next 5 years, and through taking kind of more effective measures in terms of the utilization of servers and the co-location of software through virtualization and the like, and actually having a more deterministic, empirical approach to driving that efficiency, it would in principle at least be possible to reverse that trend over the next 5 years, but not without taking measures. And as an overall trend, it's a very critical one. I was hearing an interesting statistic this morning, which was that there were 4 data centers away in terms of taking an average data center size from incurring a kind of a rolling blackout within California. That's how kind of how sizable the demands in terms of energy that are generated by a data center, but secondly, it's a sign of how much of a constraint power requirements have become. And of course, we're talking about something that is, the normal statistic is the 6th largest economy in the world if it were to be treated as a country in its own right.
I guess we're with the eastern United States currently experiencing a bit of a heat wave, air conditioning use at its maximum. I've heard of some financial institutions having their data centers actually forced off the grid and being forced to run on generator capacity during peak time. So I guess things like these are really forcing the bank's hands as large operators of data centers.
Absolutely. I mean, a recurring theme I've heard at the show is that power is now the constraint, and we certainly have customers who, given their inability to rapidly re-engineer their data centers because of their lack of visibility into what's in there and the risk involved in moving, applications and software and hardware, that they're forced to do things like float power generators beside the actual data center in order to supplement the power supply. And clearly, indeed, if there was going to be a situation where there was actually a power failure or they were going to be taken off the grid, that would provide the appropriate backup. But that's not a great situation in terms of cost, and it's certainly not a great situation in terms of risk. If you're running kind of banking applications.